Hi, and welcome to episode number 5 of the podcast project, What Does Coffee Mean to You? And for those of you that are kind of just tuning into this podcast, the whole concept here is that we're a coffee podcast that has very little to do with coffee. And why is that? Well, because it's about bringing in external inspiration and perspectives so that we can all kind of grow and learn together. So in this format, what I'm doing is that I'm meeting up with professionals, creators, athletes, restaurant owners, chefs, designers, you name it. Everyone in some way perhaps connected to coffee, who knows? But the whole purpose here is that these are very talented people in their own right from their own industries. And through these conversations, we kind of get an insight into their world and we can learn and we can grow together with them. Getting that external perspective has been such an important journey for me at April. And I kind of wanted to package that into a podcast format where all of you can benefit from it as well. And it's been 5 episodes already, and there's been some pretty interesting, amazing conversations that I personally really got a lot out of. And this episode is no exception. It's a bit of a special one because Niels here, the founder of Frama, which I think most of you knowing about Copenhagen, knowing about interior design, probably heard about at some part of your journey, because Frama has really been a big part of kind of defining the modern furniture design aesthetic culture here in Copenhagen for quite some time. And Niels, the company's founder that is with me in this conversation, is such an interesting, complex person with such an interesting perspective on life, a perspective quite different from my own in the sense that he's embracing what he says, this randomness, or being open to it. And we get kind of a glimpse here in this episode into his world and how he created one of the most successful current interior furniture, creative studio, whatever you want to call it, brands in Copenhagen, in Denmark, maybe in the world. So this is really interesting, and I can't wait to kind of share this conversation with you, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. So without further ado, we're going to welcome Niels in, and we're going to ask him what coffee means to him, and then we're off from there. Enjoy. So we have Niels with us here, and we're going to just jump into that very first question of this podcast, right? So what does coffee mean to you, Niels?
Yeah, I mean, coffee is definitely a beverage that I consume almost every day, which is, there's very few things I do every day as not a ritual, but just like as a habit, But I think coffee, one way or the other, is going to be introduced every day. And it's not like, I don't have routines in terms of I wake up, I need that coffee. It can happen 12 o'clock or 10 o'clock, or it can be, the first one can be 4 o'clock, or sometimes I skip coffee, but either by accident or, but it's definitely a coherent thing that's like returning in my everyday. And that's kind of, yeah, there's few things that does, but that's one of them, including brushing my teeth, bro.
Which is probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to touch a little bit on routines and maybe the few things you have, right? Because, being a business owner, family man, like juggling a lot of things at the same time, is there any, let's say, specific routines in your life outside of brushing your teeth and coffee that has been very helpful, or are you more like a free-flowing?
I'm a anti-routine person, but not by design, not by choice. It's like, it's just, I have 0 routines. I probably have some routines, but like, it's just every day is a new day. My memory is terrible. So I compare myself with a Post-it block, just like every day is a new Post-it. And I wake up different times. Some days I need a shower. Sometimes I don't take a shower. Sometimes I have a coffee in the morning. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I eat lunch. Sometimes I don't. So, and it's every day is just kind of floating, and 1 hour takes the other.
That's really interesting. I think that's and I'm not going to say it's unusual, but I think at least the people that we had on this podcast here, they've been, let's say, very, like, they're quite structured and very, let's say, routine based and focused, right? Has that ever been, because you're obviously, your background and what you do today is a very creative thing, right? Do you feel that perhaps you get to be more creative because you don't have these kind of fixed routines?
Yeah, I mean, creativity is so, so it's such a big thing. In our company, we say you can also be doing a creative Excel sheet or Tableau sheet or whatever it's called, so. But the classical way of thinking creativity, of course. But I think it definitely, I navigate really well in chaos, and lots of projects can happen simultaneously. And yeah, then there's, I mean, I that's one of my few skills. I would say I can handle lots of things. But then, yeah, of course, there's other things that is, I mean, actually doing the same things every day. I'm really bad at that. I mean, I have a huge respect for, lots of my colleagues, they go in and they do like not the same thing, but it's like they're kind of like running the machine. It's like running it smooth, or like making things like basically work, from day to day. And I really, it's like impossible for me to do. I mean, I think I just always move around.
Was that then like we're now maybe getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, and I want to definitely touch on, let's say, the origin story of Frama and how you got there, and why on earth start a company in the first place, right? But let's say then when you start that company, and I read somewhere, because I looked at a few like older articles as well about what you guys doing, and one of them referenced that in 2016 you kind of sat down and you really looked at the team, the ethos, and the kind of the whole let's say culture in the company to make sure that everything were the way you want to. But has it then been very important for you to bring in people that are complementary to you? Let's say you say that you're more of a free spirit, then you take in a lot of people that are very routine based, or is Frama a company with a bunch of people that are, let's say, more similar to you?
Our companies, we are almost 40 people, and we cover kind of most of these departments, like obviously design, content, creative. We have a creative department, a content department. We have marketing, but we also have, of course, business sales departments. We have logistics, admin, finance, and I think all these different departments has each person that creates those teams has different skills, and you need to be, if you're in finance, you need to know your shit about numbers. You have to be structured. You have to be, there's so many things, so many qualities that I definitely don't have. So of course we have to, the variety of people is huge in a way. And we also have, but it's not so much about skills as well, but that's more culturally that I really appreciate having a lot of like international colleagues that brings different point of views and different spirits and different backgrounds. And yeah.
Do you feel that your, let's say, idea or perspective on running a company has changed a lot from, let's say, the first day? Like, has there been a lot of discoveries of, shit, I didn't know, like, I need this, or I need someone to do this? Or do you feel that you kind of knew what you got yourself into?
In a way, almost every 3 year, max 5 years is like kind of almost a new beginning of Frama, at least. And I think there's some sort of pattern for companies that a sequence of years, and then you kind of have to at least rethink certain things, and also fundamental things. But of course, you need to keep maintaining like the core and the belief of the company and the philosophy and all that. But you still have to kind of reevaluate. Okay, so here we are, 3 or 5 years later. What's the next era, and what kind of people, what kind of direction, what kind of constellations, collaborations, is the right for the next path, and it's just never ending. I mean, it's just so. I mean, I'm never really bored, and I don't feel. I mean, I don't feel. Definitely not. I don't feel that I'm running kind of in loop. You know, it's and I think that's also important.
I think that's a big thing, and I think it's like coming from my own perspective as well. That's a difficult thing, right? I think there's a lot of companies or brands that they don't necessarily allow themselves to evolve because that can be a bit scary. Also, maybe you do something that is very successful and you need to move away a little bit from that because you know that 5 years from now it's not going to be a thing or it's not going to work or you change as a person, right? But if my research is correct, you started in 2011, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to walk us through just a little bit? Like you mentioned this kind of 3-4 year period of kind of reinvention. What have been some of the key things and maybe how different is Frama today from that very first version?
Yeah, I mean, originally I started in 2008. And there was kind of two what do you call it, like endeavors, or like two. There was like freedom and flexibility in my own life. The idea of being your own boss, and then you could choose your agenda. That was a huge thing, and then and a huge motivation to start my own company in 2008. And then I combined that with a passion for design as like a broader field. Everything from everything, lamps, chairs, tables, like everything design related was really exciting for me back then. So the first couple of years was more like running an agency of international brands represented in Scandinavia, and then there was like a learning for me, how to do marketing, how to do sales, how to do promotion, fairs, how to produce catalogs and meet architects and meet wholesale shop owners, and big learning those couple of years. And then in 2011 we introduced our own collection, which was in a way quite spontaneous. We had an offer attending a trade fair in Berlin in 2011 October, and kind of 6 to 8 weeks before, we basically didn't have a collection. So we created something in really short time, but that energy and that kind of design philosophy is still intact today, and I'm actually pretty proud of that, because it's very much about natural material driven, and simplicity, like simple shapes, design in a way as little as possible, but of course with a twist, and so it's not becoming too DIY. And then there was 11 in Berlin, and this airport called Tempelhof, and then we were showcasing together with Arctic and Vitra and Hey and Mutu probably was there, and so it was like very big brands. So that was really exciting. And then that first production was or that showcasing was ceramics. We produced locally in south of Denmark. We had a cork marble table that we produced in Sintra. We named it Sintra. Designed by another designer. So we kind of designed something in-house and then also external with other designers from the beginning. And then we also had a Japanese kind of chest of drawers shipped from Tokyo, the prototype, bringing it to Germany, to Berlin, showcasing it. People kind of like, hey, how much is it? Can we buy it? When can we get it? And we were like, we kind of hardly knew if we could produce it, So we just, everything was really up in the air. But it was an amazing beginning. And also, I think it was like 2011 was like kind of the end of like the financial crisis. And I feel that energy where you have nothing to lose. I started in 2008, which is like just where the crisis started. And then we started the collection in the end of the crisis. But it's kind of like in that period, you just fuck it, let's do it. And I think, that's also a spirit that still is maintained at Frama today.
That's pretty amazing also, right? I think a lot of like this let's say inspiration or creativity that comes out of that adversary, and the opportunities that comes when you're in these slightly challenging opportunities, right, or situations. What was the kind of like say original response, right? Like you mentioned, some people wanted to buy it in the get-go, and
yeah, I mean we introduced something that was really basic and simple compared to some of the other brands I just mentioned, and I think maybe people almost thought it was like a university project or something from the design school or something. But we definitely introduced something that it actually took a long time to kind of, for the broader audience to kind of appreciate this like kind of natural approach to design, where you introduce a piece and then it actually changes over time. It gets some patina. It maybe comes with we call it natural landscape, but basically like an excuse of, like things can come, like marble can come with certain natural, I don't know if you want to call it mistakes, or some would call it mistake, other will call it beauty, and and everything when you talk about natural materials, and it all is out of control in a way, and of course you want to create a production that is as cohesive as possible, and also of course if people are buying 5 of something, that the pieces kind of have to relate and look the same, but it's just maybe within the last 3 years, 5 years that we really get this like recognition, where people are like really, how to say, giving us credits actually for these like natural materials and maintaining this spirit basically, and design approach.
Which also, like, that means it took a little bit of time, right?
Absolutely, and everything takes time,
Was there ever a process during that time where you felt like, nah, this is not going to work, like where this is too difficult, too complicated, like it's not my thing?
I mean, I'm not so calculated, but I mean, there's definitely been changes in the business. Like in the very beginning, lighting was a big thing, a big chunk of our business. Like let's say 70% of our business. Today it's 10% of our business. So there's these like errors where where kind of new products and new product categories takes over, and that's kind of like something you have to be really good in navigating in. And I think from lighting, it became more like smaller furniture and interior pieces. And then in 2016, we introduced the care collection, Frama Care. And in a way, even though it's only 20% of our business, it's still a product that kind of moves faster than a chair, a couch, a dining table, because it's something it's a more affordable price, and you consume it in a different way. Maybe you buy 5 chairs in 10 years, but you buy maybe 500 hand washers in 10 years. So it's definitely a different product universe, but they also complement each other.
That's also very true. So you mentioned kind of this range of products, right? Like you go from having 70% lamps, you go into less lamps, focusing on other things. You're going on, as you mentioned, like one of the challenges with furniture is that you kind of don't want to buy 10 kitchen tables, maybe just want to buy one. So how important has that kind of diversity of range of products been to you?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's Frama has never been, or at least I've never been super calculated, and at least not intentionally. And it's never been like this master business plan that we presented for the bank, and then like, okay, in 5 years we have a turnover of 100 million Danish crowns, or so it's been extremely organic. And I had a colleague who called our business journey very like kind of parkour. Jumping from one level to another and up and down, and I think in 2014-15 we had a kitchen design that we basically produced and delivered for clients. Maybe it started with 2 kitchens first year, maybe 4 kitchens the next year. And I mean, it was never like a huge business, but it was still, I mean, we had monthly requests and people were super interested. But it's, again, producing kitchen is like, it's a huge thing. Like compared to like producing like lamps is a huge thing, because there's a lot of local certifications. Like in EU we had the CE, and US has the UL, and Japan has UL, but then Sweden has even stricter rules in terms of lighting. And so there's like a lot of like local things you have to be concerned about. And then also with the whole transition from the old filament bulbs to the LED, and basically outphasing the filament, which was a huge business for us, you know. So we actually did patented a 1 watt LED that we produced in China, and we were the first one to produce a 1 watt LED with just one single pin. And the Chinese manufacturers, they were like, yeah, but this doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's not enough light. You can get 3 pins, like 25 by 3 watt into one for the same price. Why would you only have one? It's like, yeah, but aesthetically it's nicer. You just have this one pin in the middle. And then, you know, but we never really managed to kind of like commercialize it. It was like, I mean, it was 25 watts. So it was like super dimmed, very kind of cozy, but still not for the mainstream. I see them actually around today. So that's interesting. But that whole transition in the lighting industry is huge. So we kind of we didn't gave it up, but focused on other things. And then again, kitchens, a huge thing. It can take 2 years to have a conversation with a client. I think one of the last kitchens we delivered was, or maybe the 2 last kitchens were in Australia. One was in Perth, and I mean, it's insane. I mean, maybe there's a small mistake or something like that, and it's so far away. Or maybe they call you 3 years later and like, hey, my oven doesn't work. And you're like, yeah, but we didn't produce the oven, but you still supplied the oven, you know. So it makes sense they're calling you, but you have zero idea of how to fix a Gartenhau oven, you know. It's like, so so that we also kind of like, we actually did a collaboration with a Swedish heritage maker for the kitchens. And we also did a collaboration on the lighting. So we kind of like try to focus more on furniture, which is still a big thing, because then you have chairs are very different from tables, and tables are very different from shelving. And if someone produces an oak, they maybe don't want to produce an ash, and if they only produce an ash, they don't want to produce in pine. So it's like a huge supply chain spider web, basically, to kind of manage.
What is because that's really interesting, right? And I obviously don't have so much insight in, let's say, you know, setting up production of furniture, but, you know, we produce a few things at April as well. And just out of curiosity, let's say you want to launch a new product at Frama, right? What is the actual lifespan of that idea before it goes into like an actual production?
I mean, it takes longer and longer, because you just do things more appropriate, like correct and appropriate, or like as they should, because there's also a bigger risk, because you're eventually producing more pieces, and you're investing more in the introduction of the pieces. But I would say 2 years. We recently introduced a chair. Almost, I think it took 14 months, but that was because the prototype was amazing, and the production went smooth. So, but like normally 2 years, I would say.
That's a very long time. It's like, in my head, it sounds like a very long time, but it makes sense. And I feel also with what I produce at April is kind of the same thing, where like the very first products, you just go, I don't know, let's just do it, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, I'm sure you have some interesting stories of things that failed as well, but we did like 2,000 units of a plastic brewer that we do, and we thought we chose the right plastic, but about 6 months in, all of them just kind of cracked open, and then we had to replace basically 2,000 units, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those kind of things. Do you have like a similar experience where something just really didn't go the way you wanted?
I think, looking back at those patterns or that I mentioned before, but I think every 3 years, there's always like a kind of some sort of major thing, which is, really kind of intense, because again, if a product fails one way or the other, like you have to deal with it, you can't just, ignore it, so it's so so many things. But I think the best thing is just to kind of fix it and as fast as possible, and then almost for whatever cost, because it would just get worse, basically. So
I see that, and you also, it's you want to be loyal also towards your customers, right? And I think people, at least for us, I think people understand that everyone does mistakes, but if you are keen on fixing them and they know you're going to try to fix them, like there's a value in that, right? And I think that allows you to do more creative things in the future.
Absolutely. But I also think with growth of the business, you also enter circles that are more corporate and more less about the passion, and they just obviously want a product that is perfect, that works, that arrives on time, that lives up to the expectations, blah blah blah. So it's becoming definitely more and more serious. Everything becomes more serious, which is also part of the journey. But
yeah, it's as part of the, as you say, scaling of a business, right? There's just certain things that you can do when you're smaller, and there's certain things that it's more difficult to do when you're larger, right? Which I think makes a lot of sense, and kind of an interesting segue there. Like what's the relationship between Frama and the, let's say, different producers of the products that you guys sell? Like how much time? Because in coffee, we spend a lot of time going to the farm, checking up on the, let's say, the factory in this case. Is there like a similar relationship in the furniture industry?
Yeah, we definitely go. We definitely go to factories, but often we don't go to the very sourcing. So let's say the pine or the oak or the ash comes from X place, and then it arrives, to our production facility, and then they have it delivered in certain profiles, and certain kind of ready to go into some sort of furniture production, and that's kind of where we see our materials. You could potentially go further back in the supply chain, which would also be interesting. But it's regardless, there's a lot of ping pong with our manufacturers and producers, and like technical aspects as well, of course, in terms of strength and durability, and yeah.
Is it a problem? Because I know from some, let's say, other furniture companies that I know, and also, let's say, in the coffee industry, one of the biggest challenge these days is to find people that can produce or actually still want to produce. Do you feel that it's more difficult to find makers of things at the quality that you want these days than, let's say, 10 years ago?
Yes and no, but I think the difficult thing is, and that's also like in a way almost endless, but you somehow start small. Everything is relative, and then you go to a medium production, and then you go to a big production, and then those steps is always super difficult, because can you actually stay at the same factory? That's a big question. Because do they want a small order to begin with, or do they only take big orders? And then if they are a very small factory, can you scale with them? Often not. And I find it, that's super tricky, actually. So I think where we are now is kind of it's a sweet spot, because often we are big enough to get bigger manufacturers that can also deal. For them, we would probably be placing smaller orders, but still big enough for them to take us serious. Where if you're in a very handhold production, then often you have a lot of you lack liability, you lack great communication. So you sometimes, often you would not have any communication from the factory. Then you cannot communicate to your clients, and then when you receive your products, there might be errors or mistakes, and then you're trying, so it's kind of like, it's a big, it's almost like art, or art, how to say, science. It's almost like science to navigate in this. And I think that's why, I mean, if you're a manufacturer, you would often have maybe a handful of suppliers, and then you would like make everything in oak, or everything. If you bought a plastic factory in China, you just, maybe your 70% of your collection is in plastic, or maybe so this like kind of a uniformity of the collection. And this is something I really, I mean, I'm against from a passion perspective. It makes completely sense from a business perspective, but it gets really it kills my motivation to that everything has to be the same materials, the same look, and you end up in that situation if you're only working with kind of the same producers. So yeah, I think that's definitely also something that is, how to say, one of our what do you call it, like passion, like endeavors, is to kind of constantly search for like new materials, but not like new as like future materials, but like new for our collection, new in a composition with existing materials. It could be like aluminum, raw aluminum combined with anything, but it's just this whole like to curate something that is works well and doesn't have this uniformity. I think is extremely important for Frama.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, looking at Frama, I mean, you mentioned the word organic a few times also, right? But I think that's what you feel also with the furnitures. Obviously we have a few pieces here as well, and it's something about scaling, but as you say, like keeping that creativity. And I'm curious, you mentioned that like now you're kind of at this sweet spot. Then from, let's say, a business owner perspective, do you go, oh, but I prefer to stay in this sweet spot? Or do you go, no, we're going to have to push forward? Because sometimes, which I know from experience, the next sweet spot might be quite far away, right? And you have a lot of time in between there that might be a bit challenging.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment on one thing, is like the kind of, I think we're also kind of pioneering, if you can call it that, but not that it's rocket science, but like to introduce a landscape of different materials that actually like we appreciate, to mix, let's say, oak together with pine, together with ash, and everything doesn't have to be the same color. Everything doesn't have to be, again, uniform. Like you can have a David in oak, you can have a dining table in pine, you can have, or it's like kind of combining silver and brass and whatnot, or raw metal together with silver or brass. And I think we're not too afraid of mixing materials in the same environment. And I think that's also something that the market still is adjusting to, that people are like still, especially like conservative environments, they still prefer that if you have a house, then the kitchen is the same quality, like timber quality as the floor, as the tables, as the timber quality in the bathroom, and like it has to be kind of like the same and uniformed. And I think there's a beauty in mixing materials and mixing qualities and mixing even like old and new, like vintage and new pieces, and contemporary, more expressive design combined with more traditional, more casual design. So I think, and you might take it for granted, but it's definitely something that is still something we kind of massage into the market together with those kind of natural materials.
Would you, like, kind of on the topic, and I mean, I think when you read about Frama, when you hear people visiting Frama, and we need to talk about obviously the showroom here in Copenhagen, also the store. Would you say that Frama is minimalistic Scandinavian design? Like, would you categorize it like that? Or would you call it something else?
I love the question because I was once I was in Korea, Seoul, went to a museum. It was a Japanese architect showcasing actually some furniture he did in a constellation with a Korean artist. And then on the way out, there was 2 small books by the architect. I bought the books, and then in this one of these 2 books, the architects say that his entire life he's been trying to create architecture that is not Japanese looking. And every time he has a new project, and he's like, look at this project, and everybody's like, it's so Japanese. And he's like, he was actually annoyed for many decades, like, because everything he was trying to do was to create, let's say, international architecture, but not Japanese architecture. And I think it's a little bit the same with Frama, that, you know, we can try not to be Danish or Scandinavian, but end of the day, I think we are creating Danish design, and hopefully in a new context and a new expression and a new pattern. But I think I have to kind of also admit that I cannot run away from that kind of slogan. But I hope it has a twist.
Maybe a follow up on that. How? Because I mean, you're born and raised Denmark, right? Like Danish. How important has Denmark been to you? Like, would you, let's say you start from somewhere else, do you think that would have been a very different company?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have. There's a lot of support in a way, in kind of like in representing design. I mean, it's understood in a broader level. Everybody has almost in Denmark, but of course in different levels, but for some sort of opinion about design, you know. And I think like not just in Copenhagen, but like all over Denmark. And I think it comes from that design has been implemented into kind of a social context since the 30s or the 20s, maybe even. But in schools and hospitals and institutions, like conference centers, canteens, you name it. Like it's just been like there's been people hired to design a space, and from a very early time. And I think doing what we've been doing with Frama would definitely have been different if, let's say, if I was born in Italy, or, you know, I think, but I think every country kind of represents different design DNAs, and there's some really unexplored design interior directions from many countries. Actually, that's another unique thing with Denmark. I think that Danish companies, we are quite small, but we are actually pretty good in communicating to a kind of a broader audience, and to kind of get some sort of like recognition. And I think it's also because we're a small country, so we kind of need to think across border to kind of, I mean, get a business going. I mean, you can make a business in Denmark, but then it's another type of business than the business of Frama, but and probably also April. But it's there's this DNA of always looking out. I think that is also helpful from a starting point.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, obviously Denmark and design history is established, right? I think we have so many different brands, old school and kind of new brands, right? I want to touch a bit on what you guys are up to in Copenhagen and, let's say, future products and so on, right? But before that, because you mentioned kind of different countries, different cultures, you spent a semester in Paris studying. I want to say before all of this.
Yeah.
And I think if we go back even further, like I'm curious where did Frama come from, right? As in, like, what's your education? What's your background before all of this? Like, were you 16 years old and designed chairs, or where do you kind of come from?
I mean, it's definitely, I mean, the reason why Frama is what Frama is today is definitely like a really rowdy non-linear background. So I've been doing probably, the most shitty jobs you can do in the context of Scandinavia. But like crazy jobs, like adventure parks, like just like not even gardening, but like what do you call it, like brooming the cowboy, like 1,000 square meter cowboy area, in the morning. So it looked fresh, in the morning. And I did newspaper deliveries. And on the bike, I've been doing kind of like cleaning tables on a discotheque and clubs, and I've been doing every kind of job. I also been in the building industry for a couple of years to make some money when I was younger. Like picking up materials, taking walls down, taking bathrooms down. But I think that has been a quite, how to say, like crucial experience for me to kind of go into these spaces. It was a very small company. It was just me and my colleague who had the company, and we were just like, okay, Niels, this wall has to go down. This bathroom, the tiles, the terrazzo floor has to go away, and you kind of transform this space into a new space, and appreciate this, like I call it, naked space, and a space without interior, and space without decor, and a space without layering, because a lot of our world is just full of layers. And I think there's definitely a pursuit for Frama to kind of represent this like anti-layer, like this like essential in a way, where it's, again, as little design as possible in a way, and then also very like honest, everything is relative in a way. But that has been a big thing for me, because that's also why the way we, some of our DNA is like kind of this rustic looking interior. But then another thing was my month in Paris. That was super interesting, because I was exposed to all these like international environments, and like local communities. Like I was living in the 20th, where I think there's Chinese living, there's Jewish people living, there's Arabic people living, there's the French Bohemian people living, and it was just like one big potpourri of people. And there's beautiful parks, and you had beautiful galleries, and focusing on Scandinavian design from the golden era. And it was so inspiring that it really also made a huge impact. And so I think all these like different like crumbles on my has been creating this like cookie, whatever the cookie is that Frama is representing.
Which I think makes so much sense when you hear the story now, right? I think, and it's also, I think, a good explanation to kind of where you are today. And let's segue into, you have a beautiful store. That show, I don't know, what do you call it?
We call it studio store, but yeah,
studio store, which is. I know every time there's like 3 days of design, I always pass by outside just to like see what crazy stuff you guys are up to, because there's always something new, right? Tell me a little bit about, like, was that the first, let's say, studio showcase that you guys had? And did that change the brand? Like, what happened when you opened that? Because I don't think at April, every guest that comes to April, 100% has been by your studio.
Yeah, there's definitely this like map of spots that people tend to kind of visit. So but that's only, I take it as a compliment, or that we are on the same, for sure. We are on the same route as April's.
I think it's the other way around, where I think people come for you guys, and then they kind of maybe want to drink coffee somewhere, and then they pop into us, right? But I think you guys are a very big part of, let's say, the modern Copenhagen. I see the Atelier September, like there's a few figures in Copenhagen that kind of put Copenhagen on the map internationally. But not saying April has done that. I think that's a lot more a Frama thing than anything else.
Yeah, so the question was, the space. Yeah, so we used to be in this area called Nordhavn, where we had a great space, actually, like ground floor, very, very garage. Like I think it was like could have been an old car workshop or something, but half of the floor was like original terrazzo floor, and the other half was some sort of wood covering, but probably because there's been a damage or something like that. And then people didn't want to make cast a terrazzo floor, so they just put some boards but it was great. But then they announced, like a huge renovation plan of the area of Nordhavn, which is like basically a 50-year renovation plan. And we were like basically in the middle, really close to where Atelier September is, in Aarhusgade 128. And we started upstairs actually at an office that we shared together with this guy that I was in the building industry with, and then some architects. And then we moved down, got a bigger space. But then this like industrial looking space, we had actually Frederick, I'm talking 2012, but we had Frederick coming and making a huge stew or something. I had a party and we had like live music, like a rock band, and it was really like kind of startup vibes. But then this space was somehow so industrial. The area was industrial. Our pieces somehow back then was industrial. So we were kind of like every single article was like this industrial brand, and I was kind of like, I felt a bit trapped into a box, which is probably the worst you can put me into a box. That's. But then, so we were scouting for like something that could almost be like this juxtaposition, and like something that could play a counter role towards our pieces. And then we just passed by this old pharmacy where this ski agency had been for like almost 15 years. And it was a huge step because, I mean, we went from €1,000 rent to 3,000 or 4,000 maybe euro rent. And, it was a huge step also to move in like kind of in the city center. And but it definitely became a really smart move. But again, I mean, it was not strategically, but it wasn't like, okay, let's use this pharmacy as it's an old pharmacy from 1878. But it wasn't strategically like, okay, this pharmacy is going to be part of our brand and DNA. But of course, the intention was to find a space that could kind of put our pieces into some sort of juxtaposition, and that was it worked or works.
Yeah, has there ever been? Because I mean now. Also lately, and I think it's a fairly new news in the sense that now you've opened up a first, let's say, store concept in Japan also, which is kind of an interesting next step in the conversation to look at, like, what's the next step here, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like looking at Frama, we definitely don't do the easy solutions. So it's been taking quite some years actually to arrive to where we are now, where we have like a relatively sustainable business. And I think there's this tagline called scale, but there's also like physical presence, I think, is also important out in the world. Like more obvious would be, let's say, Paris, New York, but Tokyo, we've been working for 5 years without having a space, but then I think the market is kind of matured for a physical space in Japan, in Tokyo, but also kind of like looking into like spaces in how to say key cities like Paris, London, New York, which is kind of where our audience is. It's kind of where the architects we work with, they live and work, and so it's the usual cities, but so that's kind of exciting.
That's really exciting. Well, this is from my perspective, looking at it from the outside, I think that whole, like, I know how, first of all, also difficult that step is, right, for many reasons, right? But it's also something really interesting with, like, I'm a big fan of physical places. Like I'm for April, everything changed when we opened up a store, right? We had like 6 years online pretty much, right? No one could really interact with us. No one could really, let's say, understand exactly what we were doing. But I think when we had that physical store, it made such a difference. And I can see how that's similar, let's say, in your landscape of products as well, right? Where you want to go and be able to to see it, feel it, and let's say be a part of the universe. Because when I look at Frama, and I think this is true for most successful brands, like you buy into this lifestyle, you buy into this like ethos or idea of life. I don't think you're just buying a table. I think you're buying it because you see something in the brand that is bigger than the product, and you want to be a part of that.
Yeah,
maybe that's a bit fluffy, but that's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's surprisingly difficult actually. Like you would think, okay, European Union, we just hire some French people, we open up a space in France, but it's actually like not that easy. It's actually super difficult, and it's in a way it's kind of sad. I mean, we had the European Union as an example. It's not a new union, but it's still extremely bureaucratic and cost heavily and with a lot of risk actually to hire international people in, or like national people but international. So of course there's different whereabouts. I mean, we found this platform we had recommended called Deal, where you can actually hire people through, and then they deal with the bureaucratic part of it, but it still has a huge cost to it. So it's easy in terms of bureaucracy, but it's an expensive solution, but less risk. So, but it's I think that's in a way, how to say, it makes it difficult for smaller independent businesses to kind of go international, and often, you know, like suddenly you have a lawyer bill for 100,000 euro and you need, you know, blah blah blah. So it's just that's definitely something to be aware of.
I mean that's a big thing, right? I mean, I often get this like, why don't you have a store in London, or like you would do so well in this country here? But it's as you say, it's like, yeah, but I need to start the company, I need to set up an organization, legal fees, all of this, right? Like it's it's very expensive.
Yeah,
and I think that's the easiest way to put it, right?
Yeah, and it takes a lot of focus and resources from also you have to manage your daily business, right? So it's yeah,
and it's at least for me, like the process of starting a company wasn't always easy, and I always looked at starting in a new country as you kind of repeat that process, right? And I could not have done what I did in Copenhagen without me just living it, so to speak, right? Or like being here. So the idea of putting it somewhere else without me being able to always be there, it's also a bit daunting, as in like it's a difficult thing to piece together from my perspective.
Yeah, but I mean, you can say, I think at least that's the process we're through, that how to make it like kind of almost like package friendly. It sounds a little bit like a vibe killer, but I mean, Japan is a result of like, okay, you know, you need to make a package, a design package and a business package that other people can understand and navigate, because if there's too many open ends, it's impossible. So I think for us has been healthy to kind of narrow in and focus and say, okay, what is Frama in Japan, or what is Frama in London? And you know, it's a really healthy exercise, but it takes time, it takes resources.
Yeah, I want to move away from that and jump into something that we touched upon a little bit before we started recording, where you said you're a very offline person, and that, let's say, you don't need the noise of let's say the online world or anything, like you have enough to kind of go through. Do you want to share a little bit of, let's say, your work process and how you kind of approach, let's say, you know, everyday tasks or whatever in the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hardly sit down, at least. So I'm always moving, always very often on the phone, checking an email, but otherwise just calling some people, calling my colleagues, chatting on Slack, but then also just like traveling, meeting people, going if there's like events or launches, but also, I mean, we do. I think we also create some spaces and some interior architecture, it also, that actually excites me a lot. Like to do, like architecture in general has been almost taking over from design, but I think it's not like I don't like design anymore, but I think design suddenly became a thing in a bigger spatial context, which architecture represents. But I mean, normally I have a baby, 1.5-year-old, and but normally I would show up like between 8 and 10, or even today, and then I would just there's meetings and just orientation and just a lot of like fixing. Yeah, just fixing things. Like I love decisions, and I love like executing and seeing results, and like I think I always, like, if people have a question, like I would always have an answer to basically like almost everything, especially when it comes to like design or aesthetics, but it could also be business actually. Like so I think, and also I'm actually pretty involved. I try to isolate myself away from admin and finance, but I'm relatively active in kind of the business part, and very active, of course, in the creative direction, and finding new pieces, new products, new people, meeting new people, starting new conversations. And I mean, there's no rule how that can happen. I mean, we recently introduced a chair called Patrik Rolf, which was he's maybe 70 years old, the designer, and I met him at a book launch for a design book at the Danish Architecture Center, and it was one of our designers who's similar age, who was like kind of semi-introducing me, and he was just talking about this little warehouse he had on Amager, and like he wanted to get rid of it because it was like some cost that he didn't afford, and I was like, oh, okay. It was full of prototypes, and I was like, oh, maybe I have a friend at Bukowski, this like Swedish auction platform, and like maybe you can sell them as bespoke pieces, like prototypes, and make a story. And then the day after, I went to his website and I found one chair that I thought was insane, designed in 1992, which still sounds quite recent, but now we're in 2025, so it's kind of some years ago. And then I went to his space, and in Österbo, and he did another chair actually recently, only a few years ago. But so these are like, I mean, this is this organic, how to say, way that Frama kind of creates products. Is like by meeting completely, I mean, random people, of course, often in some sort of like creative context, but like really have a conversation with people, follow up. I mean, I could also just have said like, see you, like maybe I'll meet you another time, and then I would never have discovered these 2 chairs, which I think is brilliant. Also chairs, I have a big passion for chairs, and I find chairs probably the most, in a way, sophisticated product of interior that you can do. Also, it's very difficult, and also to invent a chair that has not been invented before, and there's the whole strength and the kind of the soft, and like the feminine, the masculine, and the material compositions. I mean, there's so many things that I think a chair is like really representing as like an archetype, or like I don't know if you call it archetype, but like it's kind of if you have a hierarchy of interior products, I would say the chair is the top of the pyramid. But anyway, so that's, I think, just like pursuing randomness. I think that's my everyday life. And of course, there's agendas and meetings, but it's just, like floating in water, I think is, yeah.
I think that's a really, I'm going to steal that from you probably, because it's definitely, that's also something I don't do enough. I think like I'm the opposite in the sense that I'm very, let's say, structured and rigid, and don't allow maybe for enough randomness. But it's really interesting to hear also like the value that can come out of it if you're just open to it. I want to do at least, like, I know we're moving a little bit over time, but one last question, just because I'm curious also. Like what's the future now? Like what's the next? We're end of 2025, 2026 is coming up. like what can we expect from Frama moving forward?
I mean, the physical representation, I think, is definitely a big on the wish list, and I think Paris, New York, and then eventually looking into spaces in like more spaces in Japan / Korea, and then I mean we kind of say we just have to do more of the same, but like, which is also difficult, but like maintain our motivation and our kind of like how to say uniqueness, but like just do our thing, you know, like don't try to copy the competitor or be what someone else, you know, just yeah. And then I mean there's a lot of kind of corporate task that we are processing of, like, you know, again, opening a space in Paris, opening a space in New York, you know, you need to kind of like prepare yourself for a lot of how to say like it's a roller coaster basically. So everything is much easier when you work local and you can just go down the street and you know, check in. So that's an exciting chapter. I'm doing 1.5 months in Asia in the beginning of the year to actually just kind of like again pursuing randomness, but like activating Frama. Just meet people. We already know a lot of great people, but like, of course, if you only see them really short, but if you actually sit down, have a conversation, and talk about if you could collaborate on projects and stuff, then I think, so I'm super excited about that travel as well coming up. So yeah.
Amazing. I think like traveling is always, there's so much to learn, right? And there's so much to see, and also giving yourself time for it is I think very valuable, right? I'm super curious. I will follow as always to see what you guys are up to, and I think it's we're up at 60 minutes, so we should actually wrap up. So just thank you for taking the time. It's been amazing. We haven't really got the opportunity to sit down properly and have a conversation, which this kind of podcast format is all about. So thank you so much for taking the time. And thank to all of you watching and listening as per usual. We're gonna keep on going with these episodes because they're really, really interesting. So thank you again, Niels, for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting. I'll definitely come back.
Of course.
Okay. Cheers.